So welcome to the aquarium. To celebrate Heritage Open Day, we're going to look at some of the history of our aquarium. And to do that, here we've got Pete, our resident expert, who's going to tell us more about the place. So Pete, when did the aquarium open?
Well, we opened on the 27th of January 1941.
1941?
1941.
That was in the middle of the Second World War?
It was in the middle of the Second World War, which you might think is unusual given there were people had other things to think about.
Oh yeah.
It isn't actually recorded in the archives why we opened then, but our best guess is that it was done as a morale booster. The building would have been ready, maybe, and at the time, I believe the art gallery and the aquarium were the only areas that opened within the museum space. I think that was because they were thought to be the two areas that needed the least looking after, kind of the reverse of what we think now.
Makes sense. And what was on display there?
Back then, it was a lot of British freshwater fish.
So...
Carp, well, probably not that many carp back then because they weren't that common. But pike, roach, bream, maybe some trout, eels, things like that. Now, there used to be a significant trade in fish that came through Manchester and was centred around Tib Street. There were a lot of animal dealers around Tib Street in Manchester. And so fish would have been sourced from there as well, tropical species of freshwater fish.
Pike's a big old fish, where would that be kept?
They'd have been in some of the larger display tanks. You know, if you had a 4 or 5 pound pike brought in by an angler, once it's in a tank it still looks pretty impressive, even though for a pike it is only small. And it's definite that anglers used to donate fish that they caught here, because that's in the records. How the tanks were filtered differs. The tanks were filtered underneath, and a lot of the aspects of the husbandry wouldn't have been the same as they are now.
So how did it develop? What happened after that, after the British tanks came in?
Well, post Second World War, the irony thing is that pre-war, one of the centres for the tropical aquarium fish industry in Europe was Germany.
Yeah.
So a lot of the information on the tropical freshwater fish that were kept here would have come from Germany initially. The people who built the place may even have travelled to Germany in the late 30s in order to get some ideas on stocking and building and things like that. Post-war, obviously we still had rationing, we still had a lot of restrictions. I imagine that a lot of fish were sourced from local breeders. Again, it's definite that traders in the local area were used. There used to be a lot of tropical aquarium shops in Bolton. Some of the best, you know, they're still legendary. So they would have been a source for them as well. There's always been a strong aquarium fish hobby in the northwest, especially in the Bolton area. So people breeding fish at home would have been an ideal source for display fish.
Fantastic. And the displays that we've got now, how long have they been in place?
Well, this corridor didn't used to be here. Yeah. These corridor displays, should I say. When I was a child, this corridor had display cases on this wall showing fish fossils, aspects of fish anatomy, aspects of fish behaviour, things like that. On this wall there were some very psychedelic paintings, which as a child I never quite knew why they were here. You know, they were proper psychedelia. At some point in the 70s, Mike Graham, who moved on to Burnley and then Liverpool, the museums there, all this was done. So there was a fascia put in with the tanks, and at the time these were mostly reptiles and amphibians and some small mammals. And over the years it's just evolved that we do fish very, very well. We have access to fish that are very, very unusual, and so these are now all fish displays.
So here we are in the main body of the aquarium, off the corridor, with the tanks all around us. How did this look when it first opened?
Above the tanks and below the tanks was tiled, and those tiles are still present underneath this wooden fascia. Sadly, over the years, they have been damaged, but I would say that they could be restored. It wouldn't be an easy job. So yeah, you had tiling, and then you had the glass set into brass frames. So these are concrete, metal reinforced concrete, basically an open fronted box with a brass frame within that box, and the glass was set into that. The mastic that was used has changed over the years. At one point it would probably have been a high oil putty, a linseed oil putty. Some tanks may have been set with a kind of a tar-like mixture that was still available when I was a kid playing with aquariums and stuff. Terrible stuff. And then silicon sealant would have been used. But yeah, behind this fascia you can still see some of the original features.
Fantastic. Have all the tanks always been this size and shape then? Anything that changed?
Yes, but with certain provisos.
Yeah.
Some of the tanks there, over there and here have been knocked together so to make larger tanks. So originally each tank would have been the size of the glass that you see. So the largest tank would have been the two corner tanks, or this one here, this irregular shaped one. By drilling through and creating archways, I'd say you create opportunities to house larger fish.
Have people all been able to approach all the way up to the glass?
No, there was, when I was a child, and probably about up until late 80s, early 90s, there was a brass rail that went all the way around. I wasn't here when that was removed, so I don't know the rationale behind the removal, but I certainly remember the polished brass rail that went all the way around.
I noticed on the ceiling, the plasterwork, it repeats. Well, we can see fish motifs,
yes,
one after another, chasing one another. But there are an awful lot of Greek motifs right the way through the museum and the library. And I think some have been repeated here. I mean, they could. These scallop shells up here.
It could.
It might be Greek first, I'm not sure.
I think these are actually what we call a dolphin motif.
Oh,
these
right,
particular ones.
Yeah.
Because I have seen very similar ones within Greek iconography.
Yeah.
And these are usually referred to as dolphin motifs.
Fantastic. So Poseidon lives and is now in Bolton Aquarium.
Yeah.
And we've got, reeded, fluted architrave all around the place. It's amazing. So, thanks to Pete for telling us all about the history of the aquarium, and thanks to you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. See you all again soon. Bye bye.